Hi everyone, my name's Michelle, my Mama Loves You GB here on FlossTube, but also on Instagram and Etsy as well. Welcome to the Sunday briefing. This is episode number 190, nearly 200. That is bonkers. But in actual fact, it's way more than that because obviously if you add up all the manias over the years, it's, I don't know, I should probably look and see. Anyway, it's bank holiday weekend here, so I hope everybody is planning a really, really lovely, perhaps a stitchy bank holiday weekend. The weather looks like it's going to be okay, so that's good. Right, I have got so much to share with you today. Part of it is just me talking about an obsession. I have had an absolute obsession this week, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. Before I do that, I am going to announce the winners of the giveaway from 2 weeks ago. I do have a giveaway from last week, but that will finish next week. And I do have a giveaway to do today as well. So stay tuned. Right. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, we had the chart for this lovely marking sampler. And this is by Chloe, Girl with the Gavel Stitches. And this is Anne Anderton. And the winner of this, the keyword was green, and the winner of this was Rachel Pilgrim. So Rachel, I'll put your comment up there. If you can get in touch with me via email or via Instagram, just with your email address, and I'll have Chloe send you out the PDF for that. And then the other giveaway that I had was for a cotton and twine box. And if you remember, it was the April edition, and it came with a pattern for June. They have released several of these charts now with the months on, and I think you can get the rest via PDF. So this one was June, so you have plenty of time to stitch it. A mighty fine bar, a T, a little B, which has got the label in the way, a little B, obviously threads and linen, and then, whoops, the frame for it to go in. Now this box this week or this month is going all the way to Louisiana, and this is going to Janet R. Cross Stitch. So Janet, if you can get in touch with me, and then obviously I'm going to need your postal address so that I can send this out to you. And hopefully, if I'm quick, you should still get it in time for June. Right, my stitching. I have stitched 3 things this week, and 2 of them are finished and fully finished. And one of them wasn't even designed this time last week, so that's going to hint at one of my obsessions. So let's show you the one that I haven't quite finished. This is the Blue Flower Sleeping Bee, and I haven't put as much work into this one as I have into my other 2 pieces. I'd ummed and ahed about whether to do this big centre motif at the top here or whether to put an initial, and I decided to go with the centre motif. And then I've got a little bit more still to finish down here, but I am out of heirloom gold. So I'm just waiting on another skein to arrive, and then I should be able to finish this off and get it FFO'd. It's only been hanging around since the year 2000, so it's about time that I got it finished. Now, my other finish hasn't been hanging around at all for very long. My other finish was Santa Squirrel by Erin Elizabeth Designs. And I was stitching this on a piece of 36 count Mirage by Picture This Plus. And I finished it off today, actually. I finished the stitching, well, Saturday. I finished the stitching this morning, and then I FFO'd him this afternoon. So I've made him as a little hanging ornament for the tree. I can't remember if I said 36 count, but it was 36 count. And then that's the back. The back's perhaps a little bit sort of more, perhaps garish is the wrong word, but A, I love this fabric, and B, I thought the colours actually went really well with him. So he's just finished on a little flat finish with a little bit of chenille trim around the outside, and I've just put a little glass button at the top there just to hide where the chenille and the little ribbon join. But I'm really pleased with him. That is exactly what I had sort of in my mind's eye for him to be finished for the Christmas tree. So he is all done and dusted. And there's a lovely combination of sort of cross stitches and then a little bit of simple back stitch work, which just brings out some of the key features. I did add whiskers. He didn't have any whiskers, so I added some whiskers on him, but he's all finished, stitched in the Core 4 DMC, and I'm really, really chuffed with that. My freebie this week is actually also from Erin Elizabeth Designs, and it's this one, the Winter Freebie. Now, I think actually the colours are pretty similar, and I think I could use up the rest of my Mirage fabric and make this one as well. And then that would be a nice little pair for the tree. What do you think? I think that would work. So that's the freebie, and I'll put the link for the freebie down below. I'll just show you my cross stitch planner. This is Laurie Sykes' My Crazy Life cross stitch planner. She's done one for the last couple of years, and she asks a few designers to contribute a little pattern to it. I've got one in here at the moment for this year, which I can't find now. Oh, there it is. It's a little magpie needlebook, which you may remember me showing you at the beginning of this year. But there's Whilst Iris Naps. Who else is in there? Romy's Creations, Cosford Rise. So if you haven't got a cross stitch planner in mind for next year, if Laurie does it again, you might want to check this one out. Anyway, I digress. This was April. So April had a few more pink than green. So pink is a start, green is a finish. May, be it only a few days in, we've got 2 green. So hopefully I shall be able to finish off a few things this month. But let me tell you about my obsession. So my obsession this week, and it has been actually in my head for quite some time, is about the marking of linens and about marking samplers and actually what those samplers were designed to do for the girls to be able to do, which was to show that they knew their letters, their numbers, and would then potentially be able to use those as a bit of a CV to go into service with. So likely a very simple sampler that was completed probably at school, allowed them to go out into the world of work and be able to show that they were capable with a needle. And I've got a couple of marking samplers here just to show you if you're not familiar. And actually, let me just grab Chloe's. This would be a good example of a marking sampler. Uppercase letters, lowercase letters, usually just the name and the place, or maybe not even the place, and not much else. So as I said, I've got a couple of examples here to share with you. This was Mary Small, Mary A.G. Small. So she was 5 when she stitched this one, which is very, very early for a little marking sampler. Usually you're looking at somewhere between 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that, just before sort of potentially going out into the world of service. But this was a very young one. But as you can see, the sort of general format. This is another one. This is Maud Mary Dodrell. And again, this is my reproduction of Maud Mary Dodrell. Repeated letters, perhaps in different fonts, upper and lower case, numbers possibly, and then sometimes we see some kind of moral or religious verse as well to go with the sampler, which might indicate part of their character or part of their good character for a potential employer. Or to prove to a school master or mistress that they knew their letters. Now occasionally you find, oh, I have got one more example actually. I did bring one more. I bought an older original down actually. This is a Scottish one. This is actually from the island of Arran. And as you can see, you've got very, very similar things. And as with Scottish samplers, they like to commemorate everybody in their family for the previous 9 generations. This is, now I can't remember her name, Catherine McBride. And I can't remember if I said this is an Arran sampler. Unfortunately, this mark along here is where it's been glued onto the board. So yeah, a marking sampler. Now occasionally you see slightly finer samplers, which are still essentially sort of marking samplers, demonstrating either their ability with a needle and perhaps their pious nature or their academic nature. And they might include the crowns and the coronets. Because if they went to work for a family that was a noble family, they would be expected to mark the linens with a crown, the correct crown or coronet. So this is a very old Tassie one, which is missing a corner, but this is Harriet Humphrey, 1809, and I bought this one because it contains the word dunce. Now I have a bit of a thing for dunce samplers, so I'll just read you what it says before we get back onto our main topic of conversation. So it says, opportunity lost cannot be recalled, therefore 'tis the highest wisdom in youth to make all the sensible improvements they can in their early days, for a young overgrown dunce seldom makes a figure in any branch of learning. I just love that. I love that. So you've got the crowns on here. So you've got GR, which would be George Rex, that's George III at this time of the sampler, the Mad King George. Then you've got Prince, Duke, Earl, Baron, Marquis and Viscount. Now, what prompted me to start thinking a lot about the marking of linens and marking samplers in general? And it was this particular sampler. Now, I haven't ever shown you this one before. She's only been in my collection for probably about a week or so, maybe 10 days. But I've been eyeing her up for a really long time. And I just always knew that she would come to me. I don't know why, I just always knew that she would come to me. And the reason that I love her so much is because she's got the best set of crowns on any sampler that I've ever seen. So this is Eleanor Collereton, and she stitched her sampler in 1827 when she was 9 years old. And it's a really, really finely stitched sampler, but it has the best set of crowns on it. Now, probably going to get quite a lot of glare because she's just got normal glass. So at the top, she's got an address to the deity. And then underneath, she has got a series of fabulous crowns, including the Archbishop and the Bishop. So all of these would have been the crowns and coronets for the marking of linen. Now I'll show you them in a different format in just a second. But as you can see, she stitched this fabulous sampler. And I think Eleanor she wasn't the same type of girl as the samplers that I've shown you. This is much, much finer linen. And the fact that she's demonstrating her ability to know the crowns and the coronets and this address to deity, which I'll read for you in just a minute. This tells me that she potentially would still be maybe going into higher level service and wanted to show that she was really adept with the needle. It's not impossible that she may have been sort of heading for potentially the lady of the house, maybe as well. It really, really is finely stitched because the lady of the house would need to know these as well. I'm not entirely sure. What I do know, and I haven't really been able to find her, but I found her death. I haven't been able to find her life, but I found her death. And she died when she was 17. And there's not much information with her death. So I wonder whether she was actually in service away from her family. And so in terms of the records, it's not linked particularly well with her life because she wasn't living with her family. So she died, as I said, when she was 17, so before census records. But let me tell you what it says here. An address to the deity. Father of light and life, thou good supreme, O teach me what is good, teach me thyself, save me from folly, vanity and vice, from every low pursuit, and feed my soul with knowledge, conscious peace, and virtue pure, sacred, substantial, never fading bliss. Now that is the best I've done with a religious piece for quite some time. Now I will reproduce Eleanor Corrigan because I just love her. I may bring the border down, or give the option of bringing the border down, but that is something to consider in the future. But those crowns, I just loved those crowns. So I charted this last weekend and I've stitched it this week. It's been going round in my head for quite some time in some format or other, because I started to look back at the sort of household guides that were available to servants and sort of housekeepers about the marking of linens. So I'm going to show you the design and then I'll tell you where each part of it comes from. So this is called On the Marking of Linens. So you can see straight away Eleanor's crowns. This is stitched, before I forget, on 36 count, bite my own tongue, 36 count light Sanditon from Swan Bay Fabrics, and it uses Gentle Art's Schoolhouse Red, which appears to be in worldwide shortage, by the way. So let's have a look at her crowns. And the reason why these crowns are so exceptional is because they've got both the male and female crowns for all of the sort of hierarchy. So we said that GR was George Rex, and then Q is obviously Queen. We've got Prince and Princess there. So here, this is the male side. So we've got Duke, I missed out Duke, Duke and Duchess, Marquis and Marchioness, Earl and Countess. And then underneath we've got Viscount and Viscountess, Baron and Baroness, and then we've got Archbishop and Bishop. So those are the crowns from Eleanor's sampler. Now we need to try and explain the rest of the alphabets and why the alphabets are as they are. So these two alphabets here were taken, now I need to get the name of this book, were taken from a book called The Family's Best Companion, which is a section in the Young Man's Best Companion by George Fisher, the Servant edition. And now you can find this book on Google. You can read the whole book. It's really, really interesting. I've learned more than I needed to know about pickling, for example. I couldn't find a date on the book, but it's pre-1856 because the copy that's been scanned has an inscription in the front which says 1856 on it. So the book is pre-1856. Now, I have got a little quote from this book, which I'm going to read to you. It says, this is independent, so I should start off with the headings. The heading says on marking. So this is about marking of linens. This is independently necessary and useful for the training up of the younger sort of the female kind to the needle, it being introductory to all the various and sundry sorts of needlework pertaining to that sex. Therefore, I have set down the alphabet in capitals or great letters, and small, likewise the figures, that young girls or young women, by often practice, may soon attain to perfection in marking on linens. So, this alphabet here is taken straight from that book. And as you can see, there's several variations of different letters. Now, there isn't a separate J on here because I and J were used interchangeably. Okay, so in fact, I don't think any of the alphabets, oh no, one does. So this one doesn't have a J in it, neither does this one. So this is what they call the great letters, or the uppercase, taken from that particular book. And this is the lowercase. Now I've done something slightly different with this one. I've done this one backwards and in four-sided stitch. Now the reason that I've done this backwards and in four-sided stitch is because, again, when I was researching the marking of linens, another resource that I looked at talked about the fact that the marking of linens should be so accurate that it can be double-sided, so that the letters should look like the four-sided stitch on the back. So that is where this one came from, or where that came from. I've just done the numbers normally. Right, what's this in the centre here? So this is an example of how the marking of the linen should be done. So this is taken from, let me get the name of the book right, The Workwoman's Guide, which was published in 1838. And again, it's available on Google Books, and it's really, really interesting. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we've got here. Now, in gentlemen's families, house linen, and I'm reading a little bit from this book, is either marked with the gentleman's initials or with those of the lady's Christian name added to the gentleman's full initials, his Christian name coming first. Now, because I've taken this part of the alphabet and these crowns from Eleanor Collereton, I've used her initials there, Eleanor Collereton. So let's say her husband was Alex. I know they wouldn't have the same surname, but I wanted to honour Eleanor. So it would be Alex or Alexander Eleanor Collereton. And then this tells you how important linens were, because GC would stand for glass cloth. So they were marking exactly what the cloth was for. Glass cloth number 8, 1818. So it was the 8th glass cloth that they had. They had it in 1818. So even down to those types of linens, not just shirts and undergarments and things like that, glass cloths would be marked. So that's where that part comes from. And I've used her font from her sampler for that as well. Now, this type of marking was very common on things like napkins, to have it shown in this kind of diamond pattern. And again, it would have been the initials of the family, the male of the family, then the female, so the husband and then the wife, and then the number of the particular napkin that was there. But it was done in that sort of diamond shape. And you do see on marking samplers, some marking samplers, you do see the numbers and letters done in this particular format, and it's because of the way that it was marked there. Now this alphabet at the bottom here is also taken from this book, Workwoman's Guide, but it comments the third alphabet, so this is the alphabet that's third in the particular book that I looked at, is a correct representation of the Italian characters which are much used for marking pocket handkerchiefs and other fine articles of dress. So you might see that more script-like one used when it came to that. So I wanted to do something which would have been available to those girls to show them how they would need to mark linen. So we know that marking samplers gave them their letters and their numbers, and they could show that they knew them, even if they weren't perhaps literate. And for some of these girls, the only time they really wrote their name on anything would potentially have been on these samplers. So I wanted to do something that was a bit like a page from one of these workwomen's guides, to really explore the marking of samplers. And in these books, they talk about the threads that would have been used. So red was a very common colour because it stood out. I also found a recipe for the ink that then replaced the marking, the sewn marking of samplers. And it starts off with "take a pint of stale beer." So it is absolutely incredible. The other thing that I found was really incredible was when they were talking about how to stitch. So I'm going to read you this part, because I didn't know this, and I'm not sure I've seen it, and I need to check. So it talks about, in marking, 2 threads are generally taken each way. There are 3 ways in which the needle is passed before the stitch is perfect. One is a slant from you towards the right hand. The second is straight down towards you. The third across is a slant from you to the left hand. So what they're saying is the top leg was on the top. Sorry, the leg that went from bottom right to top left was on the top, which is I think how most people stitch, but I stitch the other way. The generality of markers make the first stitch a slant twice over to make it clearer before proceeding onwards. So basically what they're saying is bottom left to top right, and then bottom left to top right. So the bottom leg had 2 strands, and then bottom right to top left. Now I've never noticed that before, and I wonder whether, I'm going to go back through my samplers now and see whether they've done it on any of the samplers, or whether that is just something that they would have done in linens. Now, the other thing that I meant to mention actually, when we were talking about this part here, is that the coronet would have gone on top of that. So if necessary, the Viscount or the Baron's coronet would have sat on top of that particular marking pattern there, or with the this napkin pattern here. So we're not talking about the fine sort of monogramming of linens that also went on, that was meant to be on show, that was meant to be part of the decorative feature of the work. This is about the marking of the linens in the sort of fine way that you wouldn't have seen, but so that that household could be run to absolute perfection, with all the linens that had gone out to be laundered coming back and going back to the right person. Now that absolutely fills me with admiration, because I cannot keep a pair of socks together. I cannot. I doff my cap to anybody who can consistently wear a pair of socks, because I just can't do it. So just the value placed on these linens, and the care and attention that went with them just blows my mind, and was something that I wanted to look into in a little bit more detail. So this will be available in my Etsy shop, not this weekend, probably next weekend, because I want to write a booklet that says all these things that I've told you about, all these things that I've researched. And I do have a little marking sampler that I haven't reproduced, and I thought I might do that as well as a companion piece to this one. So I hope you like it. It's been my obsession this week. As I said, this only existed in my head last weekend, and now it's framed. It even has a back on it. That is how baffling it was. So I've been really enjoyed this. Right, just clear a little bit of the backlog whilst trying not to put anything down directly on the sampler. Right, I have got a little bit of haul to share with you, and I've got another giveaway. So let's do the giveaway first. Now the giveaway is again from Cotton & Twine, and the lovely ladies at Cotton & Twine have been incredibly kind, and they have given me this box to give away. So it'll have 2 weeks. Now you might have seen on social media this design. I really had to dig deep to give this away, let me tell you, because I just love those swans. I love those swans. I might even have to buy another PDF for myself. So you get the pattern, obviously. You get one of those Mallow and Marsh bars as well, and this huge bar of hand soap. It is ginormous. It says beautifully fragranced hand soap. It's lovely. It smells lovely. I was just looking to see if it told me what fragrance it was, but I think it's just a floral fragrance. Tea, as usual. And then we have a little bit of striped fabric for the finishing, as well as some rickrack. And then this time we have this beautiful sort of smoky, is it smoky pearl? Does it tell me? No, it doesn't. I think it's called smoky pearl or pearl grey or something. It's a really lovely colour. And the threads, which are just going to look fabulous on it. And I'm sure there's a needle in there, because there's always a needle in there. Very handy. So if you would like to potentially win this box, if you can just include a comment that says the word swan, that would be marvellous. And I'll draw that in 2 weeks' time. And then I had 2 chart purchases and some threads. So I managed to pick this one up, Mildred's Garden House, on a stash unload. I think it's out of print. I'm not sure if it's reappeared somewhere else in one of the other booklets, but I didn't pay out of print money for it. So if it's not out of print, then it's not any great loss. But I love the border on that. I love the house on that. So can't wait to do that one. And I also picked up this. Now I've got quite into Erin Elizabeth. I loved stitching that squirrel. And this, I think, was originally in a box for, I want to say Crazy Annie, but I'm not 100% sure. And I saw it last year and I just loved it. I just don't know if I'm going to stitch that whole thing, but I want to stitch that tomato in that sort of filigree basket or filigree bowl. It is perfect as it is. I love it. It's not huge either. She manages to get so much great detail in her designs, and they're not huge. So this is 93 by 109. So really not very big at all. So that is new into her shop, because I think it's just been come out of its like exclusivity period. And the other thing that I have got is I have got 2 sets of classic Colourworks threads from Lakeside Needlecraft to show you, because the ones I had, so this is last month and the month before, because the ones I had the month before were accidentally a copy of a pack that I'd already had. So Kate sent me the next pack and then the next pack as well together, and then I returned the other ones. So every time I say this, we must be getting to the end of this sort of subscription, because I've got to Z, and I also had this time a set of sort of 8 or 9 sort of random ones. So I know that perhaps if they've not got a particular colour, they move on to the next one and then they catch you up at the end. So I'll just go through these because I know people like to see them. Weather Vane. Oops. Storm Lake Sunrise. Fields of Green. That's a very bright green. Cottage Daisy. That is a perfect description of that. Priscilla's Peppermint. Summer Sky. Marmalade. Sea Oats. I have no idea what a sea oat is. Tahiti Orange. Tropical Paradise. Sweet Potato. Ye Old Gold. Zach's Black. Mariner's Compass. Little Sprout. Lighthouse. Chesapeake Bay, baking tin, and 2 pudding ones, chocolate mousse and vanilla custard. So that is all my haul, just a little bit today. Before I go, I just wanted to mention some FlossTubers that I've been watching this last few weeks. Some ones that I've watched for quite some time: Debbie at Mama Bear Stitchery, Kenny Stitches. Now Kenny has just done an epic 4-part whip parade. Now he's up into the sort of 300-400s of whips, and I was waiting for the last part to come out with all his fancy ladies. Now I stitch fancy ladies vicariously through Kenny because I just find them fascinating. I find his stitching of them fascinating because he's got so many, and the fabrics he chooses are just amazing. Just so Sherry, obviously, and Stuart in Stitches. I love watching Stuart. But 2 new ones. First, I've got to mention Olive Green, which is Vashti from the Attic. Now, I got to know Vashti a little bit when I was out in America, and we've toed and froed a little bit on Instagram. She is just the most fabulous lady, and I loved the way she sort of talked about her whole journey all the way through, from first starting of cross stitch to where she is now. And I know my mum watched it as well, and she found it really useful seeing how you progress and how people do progress. So amazing. And then last night I watched Pam, who is Ditsy Daisy Crafts. She's up in Scotland, and it was again a really lovely introduction to her and her stitching journey and her programme. So I really hope that she's going to do some more very soon, because yeah, it was really interesting to watch. So a couple of recommendations there, and go and check those people out if you don't already watch them. Right, I've probably waffled on enough about my obsession this week, so I shall see you next week. Stay classy, Stitchers.